Talking about history is really important because it helps us realise that the way things are now isn't actually set in stone. We can change it. Some people treat the existence of police like it's this natural phenomenon, right? Like it's the wind or the sun and it's unchanging. But modern police forces that we know today are only 200 years old. I mean, a uniformed, professional law enforcement body with a monopoly on violence in a particular area. The first institution like this was the Metropolitan Police in London, founded in 1829. It was the height of the Industrial Revolution. It turned out that when you forced peasants off their land and into slums and factories, that some of them ended up stealing bread, and some of them wanted to form unions to try and improve their lot in life. And Parliament in the UK didn't like this, so they founded the police to keep workers in London down. And then that spread, of course, to the colonies to drive Indigenous people off their land and keep the money flowing. So once there were no police, now they're everywhere. But history also shows us that some things don't change, and the role of police has remained the same for 200 years. Every positive social movement that threatens capital has been opposed by the police. Child labour laws, the 8-hour day, fighting against conscription, women's suffrage, the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, the Afghanistan War, Iraq, queer rights, the genocide in Gaza, climate change. At every turn, the police have been on the wrong side of history. By the way, if you think that the police don't have these reactionary social attitudes, that it's just the people at the top, look at what their union says. They're all members of their so-called union, and it tells us about the collective desires of the cops. They want more weapons, more power. They want less oversight and no consequences for cops that maim or kill. Maybe there's cops across the road who think, oh, you're a good cop, you know, you're not a bigot, you're not corrupt, you're not violent. But when was the last time that you reported a colleague for their racism or violence? When was the last time you refused an order? It's never. You're not what you feel, the story that you tell yourself about how you're a good person. You're what you do, and you do the same thing as every other cop. The police will continue to defend the rich and powerful. They'll make sure that arms dealers are not disrupted, that climate change continues, unless there are no more police. There was a time before police and there'll be a time after. Things could be so different, right? Like the cop approach to drugs is to strip search people and make sure that production is in the hands of bikies instead of, say, regulating it. If we took money away from the police and put it into a healthcare approach, that would actually save lives. It's been shown time and again when it's been tried elsewhere. And how about when somebody's having a mental health crisis, we send a mental health professional to their door instead of a trained killer? And instead of locking kids in prison, why don't we give them fulfilling lives? You know, better money for proper healthcare, education, housing. These are the things that stop crime, not policing. And with youth programs, I don't mean things like the PCYC, which, I kid you not, was based on the Hitler Youth. We need police out of kids' lives. The biggest driver of crime is inequality. Inequality that is enforced by the police. They are not the cure, they're the disease. So let's hold killer cops accountable. Let's drop the charges against the Indo-Pacific 12 and repeal anti-protest laws, but then let's go further. Because if we want to create a better world, we need to get the cops out of the way.